Sonic Heroes always left me feeling conflicted. As a kid, I loved its energy. The bright colors, the music, the characters. It felt like everything Sonic was supposed to be. But every time I played through it, something felt off. I didn't understand why back then, but I felt it. Some levels were magic, others just frustrating. I've replayed Sonic Heroes many times since then, and now I think I understand what that feeling was. It was the level design. That's where the cracks started to show for me. And that led me to something I never knew back then. Takashi Iizuka, the game's director and lead level designer at the time, had to finish designing the levels by himself. So in this video, I want to walk through each level in Sonic Heroes and trace where the game shines and where it begins to fall apart. Not to tear it down, but to understand what Iizuka-san was trying to do and where he left carrying the weight of a project too big for one person. Before we dive in, I want to set the stage with a quick recap of Sonic Heroes' development journey. At the time, Sonic Heroes was developed by Sonic Team USA, a branch of Sonic Team that had relocated to San Francisco after Sonic Adventure 2. The team was led by producer Yuji Naka and director Takashi Iizuka, who also served as the lead level designer. That's already asking a lot. The total dev team? Just 19 people. That's insanely small for a 3D multi-platform release, even by early 2000 standards. The development cycle lasted 20 months, and during those 20 months, cracks started to show, and not just in the game itself, but behind the scenes. If you've played Sonic Heroes before, some of this probably won't surprise you. Many YouTubers have covered this game's rough edges over the years, but if you're new to it, or haven't heard the backstory, you might not realize how much strain the developers were under. 2003 was labeled the year of Sonic. The franchise was back in the public eye with Sonic X on TV, a surge of new merchandise, and an anniversary on the horizon. Sega saw this as a chance to reintroduce Sonic to a new generation, and Sonic Heroes was the spearhead. That meant tight deadlines, strict mandates, and the heaviest burden of all, crunch. Sega couldn't afford to miss the marketing opportunity tied to Sonic's 12th anniversary, so that tiny team of 19 people had to push out a polished, multi-platform 3D platformer, and fast. But here's the wild part. Out of those 19 developers, only 2 people were tasked with building the levels. One of them was Takashi Iizuka himself, the other, a developer named Itaro Toyoda. And midway through development, Toyoda-san fell seriously ill. So ill that he didn't return for the remainder of the project. That left Iizuka-san to design the rest of the stages entirely on his own, while also leading the entire team as the director. To put that into perspective, this was 2003. 3D game design was still in its Wild West era. No standardized tools, no proven blueprints. Sonic Heroes wasn't just for one platform. It had to run on the GameCube, the PS2, and the original Xbox, each with their own technical quirks and limitations. On top of that, Iizuka-san had to navigate mismanagement between Sonic Team USA and Sonic Team of Japan. Since Sonic Heroes was developed by the USA branch, both teams had different visions for where the franchise should go in this new multi-platform era. And because Heroes was a departure from the adventure formula, it's easy to imagine that tension and miscommunication were eating up a lot of the development time.
日本に戻ったのが2007年でしたかね。なので結構その日本のソニックチームもこうみんなそれぞれがディレクターが考えた新しいソニックゲームを作る。各ディレクター、各プロデューサーがそれぞれのタイトルを作るっていう時代が少しあったんですね。で、私がその日本に戻った時にその一人一人のディレクターたちがこう自分たちの解釈でソニックタイトルを作ってるっていう状況がすごく良くないなと。
So now, imagine being in Iizuka's shoes, juggling 3 consoles, directing a small yet overworked development team, and hand designing the final stretch of the game's levels solo. In his own words, Takashi Iizuka said he never stopped working. And during that time, he lost 22 pounds due to stress and overwork. This is the part that always gets me. When you realize that a huge chunk of Sonic Heroes, the good, the janky, the chaotic, was designed by one man in the middle of burnout and borderline collapse, it doesn't excuse the flaws, but it does explain them. And more importantly, It gives us a human lens through which to view the game. Sonic Heroes wasn't just trying to be a fun follow-up to Adventure 2, it was a last-minute, cross-platform gamble with an overloaded team and a crunch culture still normalized in Japan to this day. 19 people working on an ambitious project with conditions such as these are bound to make someone sick, or worse, just to finish said game. You have to remember, this was a transitional era for Sega. Coming off the failure of the Dreamcast and stepping away from the console market entirely, the company found itself in a make-or-break moment. Sure, in hindsight, Sega's not new to these situations, but in 2002, during the development of Sonic Heroes, this felt different. This wasn't just another game. This was a title that was going to define what Sonic would become in a new generation. The emotional stakes were high, and you can feel that in the game itself. Every idea they had, every spark of creativity, every risk was poured into this project. It wasn't just about gameplay or innovation. It was about survival, legacy, and proving that Sonic still had a place in this industry. As I was replaying Sonic Heroes, I wanted to see at which point did Toyota-san fall ill. I wanted to see if the levels themselves told a story in a severely understaffed level design team that had Takashi Iizuka stretching himself so thin. Let's start off with the first half of the game, starting off with Seaside Hill. From Seaside Hill to Frog Forest, I feel like the game was at its strongest. In a 2003 interview with Game Informer, Iizuka-san explained his core Sonic design philosophy. First of all, there are several aspects of Sonic's character that we want to protect and conserve, and make sure we don't damage. Gameplay-wise, it would be making sure that the action has a good tempo. We remove annoying things that would just waste hours. If the tempo is good, players will want to play the same stage multiple times. Then, with each replay, it becomes more and more fun. That good feeling is what I endeavor to create in players with a Sonic game. I think it's a good idea to focus on the game from Iizuka-san's design philosophy, as in my opinion, it'll give us a better idea where the vision matched the manpower, or specifically, the lack thereof. During the first half of the playthrough, Iizuka-san and Toyota-san did a really good job at laying the level assets out in a very cohesive way. Big open areas with branching pathways, enemy placements that felt fair but also completed the level design, and the tempo being relatively good with a couple of dips like in Casino Park, for example. Casino Park doesn't feel like a traditional level, and neither does Bingo Highway. In terms of annoying things that slow the pacing down, I think Casino Park is one of the lower levels of the first half. During the second half, however, is where I felt the cracks started to form. Remember, Toyota-san fell ill around the midway point through development. Now, considering there are 4 other playable teams, it would make sense that they designed the levels around Team Sonic first, then added extra or less assets for the other respective teams. Levels like Hang Castle, Egg Fleet, and especially Final Fortress, while very stylish and epic, end up feeling like more straight shots with enemy spam. The stage's length starts to creep up around the 8 to 10 minute mark, and while replayability is very important to Iizuka-san, you can tell by the lack of manpower that he couldn't iron out the levels as much as he would have liked to. From how open Seaside Hill was to how linear and repetitive the last few stages are, the juxtaposition in design philosophy becomes really apparent here. I don't think I ever found myself wanting to replay any of the later stages, especially their Act 2 variants. Haunted Mansion is just too crammed, and once again, Final Fortress, while thematically great, suffers from flow-breaking combat, and because of the time constraints, I feel as if he just decided to pad everything out. Looking at the concept art for Sonic Heroes, it's clear that the later stages had so much more potential. Take Final Fortress, for example. Originally, it was going to be underwater, which makes total sense, especially after you take down Eggman's airships and Egg Fleet. Imagine it. The sudden shift from high altitude combat to deep sea warfare would have added so much to the feeling of progression. It could have tied into the story too, like how Eggman could have had this hidden underwater base that builds on his secretive nature and massive operations. And then there's Egg Fleet, like I just mentioned. The concept art here really shows how much the developers wanted to make it feel like the ultimate final battle. The design in the early stages had more platforms, objects to interact with, and visual clutter, making it feel like a bustling, chaotic setting. Instead, what we got in the final version felt more like a grand open sky with barely any interaction. The empty space didn't match the scale of the final conflict, and really made the stage feel a little lackluster compared to its earlier levels like Seaside Hill or Frog Forest, which were packed with creative platforming and challenges. This gives us a glimpse into how much development pressure there was during Sonic Heroes. You can see in the concept art that there were so many ambitious ideas for the finale, but with a tight development schedule, we never got to experience that version fully realized. It's heartbreaking, really, because these levels had the potential to elevate the game from a solid Sonic entry to something truly memorable. Without Toyota-san's help, no matter his experience level, Iizuka-san didn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. And while he was technically the lead level designer, we can't forget, he was also the director of Sonic Team at the time. That meant he wasn't just designing those final levels alone, he was also juggling communication, leadership, and oversight for the entire project. The weight of the team and the vision rested entirely on his head. When Iizuka-san was asked what other additional challenges he faced during development, he states, "It took a long time to fully realize the team's action system in a form that was satisfying. We had to thoroughly verify whether it wasn't wrecking the tempo. Then there was the maps. In Sonic Adventure 2, we designed each map individually to match up with the respective character's gameplay. This time, there were so many things to juggle simultaneously, trying to invoke a sense of speed, provide places to use your powers, using the flying characters. It was much more confusing to design than the earlier Sonic games. We'd finish a map, only to realize, this isn't quite right, and then we had to revise it. Now, this happens a lot with game development. Studios go through multiple revisions just to make sure the final levels are at the best that they can be. Considering Sonic Heroes was a big departure from the adventure games, and it was multi-platform with different hardware across all three, it's no wonder things were pretty rocky. Now, the formation mechanic was really good overall, given the option to use the intended formation, but also given the option to use a different one depending on player intuitiveness. The problem with the final levels, in my opinion, is that the formation changes become a lot more limiting. Of course, yes, speedrunners will find a way to traverse through the game, but for the regular player, things feel a lot more limiting. Not to mention repeating sections and auto-scroll segments that purposely pad out the stage. It's obvious things were hard for the team. Playing through these levels 4 times in a row is easily Sonic Heroes' biggest drawback, but given the nature of its development, it's not all that surprising. Once again, coming off of Sonic Adventure 2, which featured distinct levels and layouts for each character, it's a noticeable downgrade. Reusing the exact same stages in the same order across 4 teams wasn't just a design choice to me, it was likely a necessity. They simply didn't have the time or manpower to mix things up. This isn't to make excuses for Sonic Heroes' shortcomings, but at the same time, I'm genuinely proud this game even exists. Between Toyota-san dealing with serious medical issues and Iizuka-san nearly working himself into the ground, it reflects not just the pressure of crunch, but the deeper roots of Japan's overwork culture. Even though Sonic Team USA developed the game, many of its core members were still Japanese, so those intense, self-sacrificing habits were baked in. It's a harsh reality, and one that leaves a mark on the games we play. In Heroes' case, it's honestly inspiring to see. The game holds a special place in many hearts, mine included. While it still gets a mixed reception in the community, and rightfully so in some areas, I can't help but respect the effort behind it. Takashi Iizuka has received a lot of flack over the years, but I've always felt like he truly cares about the series. And that passion has always shown even when the execution doesn't fully land. Sonic Heroes is a prime example of a small team trying their best to make something honest and fun. The conditions they faced then and even in the years that followed showed just how much they were willing to endure under Sega's often confusing direction. Sonic Heroes was the point where 2 level designers were pushed beyond their limit, and one had to become a one-man army just to bring the game to life. I'll always hold Sonic Heroes as a flawed but meaningful game with unforgettable moments and clear signs of the struggle etched in its design. And Takashi Iizuka, if you're watching this, thank you for sticking with this series through thick and thin. Of everyone at Sonic Team, few have sacrificed as much or fought as hard for Sonic as you have. Through all the twists and turns of developing Sonic Heroes and every game that followed, one thing has always been clear. You love this character. You believe in him. Sonic Heroes was my very first Sonic game, and in my opinion, you accomplished exactly what you set out to do. You introduced a new generation to the Blue Blur, and for many of us, including myself, are still here today. because of that. So thank you. And to you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And be sure to check out my previous videos and playlists for more Sonic content. As always, this is Breck, and I'm signing off. God bless, and take care.